we're going to get started. Linda is en route. Frank called in sick this morning, not feeling well, didn't want to get anybody else, which more people need to do that, actually. But we're going to get started, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance like we always do. Chris, start us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just remember, we're being webcasted like all of our meetings are. Like we always also do, we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves. We'll start Father Alex and work our way around the room.
Alexander Carlutzis.
Matthew Cuomo.
Francesca Polo.
Shahir Khan.
Christopher Hahn.
So I will recognize a quorum with the folks at the table, and then Susan, Carol.
Carol Gomes.
Charlie McMahon.
Deborah Lowenfein.
Susan Blum.
Lynn Johnson.
Rick Eto.
Matt Whalen. Richard Reeder.
Nicholas Scudetto.
Kathy Byington.
Judy Griman. Carol Mondoro.
Rachel Kavanaugh. Marissa Trachtenberg.
Ed Quinn.
Carolyn Cuby.
Michael Bayer. Ernest Brooks.
Andrea LePac.
Kimberly Joy Dixon.
All right, very good. And
Robert DeBoer.
from our alumni network,
Yes.
association. Okay.
Michael Bernstein.
Oh, you skipped you?
Yeah.
I was saving you for last, because you wanted to acknowledge our new
Yes,
special member.
yes,
So
I
we'll
do.
do that before I get to the rest of the stuff.
I know we went around the room, but I do want to welcome Charlie McMahon, who is our interim chief information officer, who's joined us just a week or so ago and spelling us through our transition as we map toward a search to identify a new permanent CIO in the months ahead. Charlie comes with extensive experience. He just came off a consulting assignment with the Los Angeles Community College District. As it happens, Charlie and I worked together at Tulane University for many years, so I think we're in very good hands in Do It with Charlie on board. So welcome, Charlie.
All right, thank you, Michael. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the meeting of October 7th, 2019. Motion by Father Alex, seconded by Chris. Any comments, revisions, addition? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. The chair's report, I'm going to defer because the biggest thing that's going on right now is the presidential search. And it's the thing that's been taking up a lot of my time. And we have our consultants from Isaacson Miller here today, and we're going to have a presentation from them in a couple of minutes. And so I'm going to skip my chairman's report because really, other than the search, there's not a whole lot other things to report on, because as I said, it's taking up a lot of time, and excited about what's going on. I'll speak a little bit more about that when I introduce our friends from Isaacson Miller. So with that, Michael, Mr. President, I'm going to hand it over to you for your President's report.
Thank you, Kevin. A very brief report this morning in the interest of time, as our chair just mentioned. I've welcomed our interim CIO. That was an important order of business. I did want to share with the council that the university will receive over $955,000 of funding from SUNY over a 3-year period. This is part of the so-called Prodigy Initiative. This is a special initiative to enhance faculty and student diversity at the SUNY campuses. This over $950,000 worth of funding I've just mentioned is in support of the recruitment and appointment of 6 faculty members. We're very excited about these developments. Just for your information, these are appointments in ecology and evolution, chemistry, social welfare, marine and atmospheric sciences, civil engineering, and computer science. And this is the first of what we hope will be a continuing set of initiatives to enhance the diversity of our faculty ranks with the welcome support of the SUNY initiative in this arena. Speaking of engineering, we got some very welcome news from Fotis Soteropoulos, the Dean of the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences. Over the weekend, the American Society for Engineering Education, which is the key national group, has reported rankings with respect to the production of Bachelor's of Science degrees in engineering. Stony Brook is ranked 19th nationally now in the production of so-called BSc degrees. That's remarkable if you think about it. As it happens, we are also ranked 19th nationally in the production of BSc degrees going to women. That's also quite a remarkable accomplishment. And just to rub it in a little bit, Mr. Chairman, at UB, they're ranked 34th, and with respect to women's degrees, they're not in the top 50. So good on us. We're very excited about what's going on in the College of Engineering.
That's great. Do we have any programs in the country, at the university, ranked higher than 19?
In the production of degrees? It's a good question.
Or just rated that high, and
In terms of quality, oh yes, yes. I mean, certain programs, just name a few: clinical psychology, our graduate programs in nursing,
Physics.
for example, physics, math,
Those are all
chemistry
higher.
are all top ranked. But to be so prominently ranked so quickly in the production of BSc degrees is really a remarkable accomplishment. So all praise to our colleagues over in the college. I also wanted to mention, speaking of praise, we have celebrated 2 conference championships in our intercollegiate athletics programs this fall. Women's soccer claimed a title. It's their 2nd title in 3 years in the American East Conference. And men's cross country also took the American East Conference title, their 3rd in 4 years. So I also on Saturday night had the pleasure of watching the men's basketball team crush Brown. So that was a lot of fun. And then finally we had a Light the Brook ceremony this past week. Shahir Khan sort of led the charge here, and so we have beautiful lights along the academic mall. A pretty considerable number of people, and several of us from the administration, several people around this room, froze to death with Shahir.
We did.
As we heard some nice a cappella music, and then lit the brook, and then rushed into the administration building lobby to have hot chocolate poured it over our hands. And then finally, I just want to mention Friday, December 20th is our winter commencement, and we are looking forward to awarding degrees at all levels of instruction to our students. This is obviously the smaller of the 2 commencement ceremonies every year, but it's an important event especially for a lot of our international students who take their degrees in mid-year and head back home. So we're looking forward to the 20th.
Very good.
That's it, sir.
Any questions for Michael? I have a question. I don't know if Michael can answer it or if Susan Bloom can answer it. I don't see Sean in the room. I went to the game on Monday night against Manhattan, and maybe it was written somewhere, but I didn't learn until I was at the game that we lost our prize, I thought our best player of the year last year, DeBoer, to Rutgers. And I know our friend who was our coach here who went to Rutgers, he must have stolen. And are we entitled to some type of like a consideration for that, or a draft pick? I mean, it happens in professional sports, but we lose one of our best players to a former coach to a competitive team, and we're stuck holding the bag. And I'm just wondering if did we get anything for that?
I don't think so, but maybe we should, and I'd have to look at the NCAA rules. There are lots of different considerations. Often there are contractual provisions that say in employment situations you can't pick off any of your colleagues for X amount of time. Whether that's true in sports, I have no idea, Kevin, but I can certainly look into it.
I know what it
I think
happens
he has to
over on
sit out a
medical-
year too, right?
What was that?
Doesn't your BOA then have to sit out a year?
I don't know. So
Yeah,
I didn't even know he left. But I know we do it with our doctors across the street. If they leave, we
Right.
have a
A restricted
restrictive
covenant.
covenant with what they could do. So I was
But
just
sports
surprised.
is its own legal universe, so.
But it's regulated by NCAA rules.
Yes.
Right. All right. If you and Sean could talk to Sean about that and just let me know.
Okay.
Other than just having sour grapes feeling. So any
Well, he did go to an inferior university, so look at it that way.
Okay, so no other questions for Michael. So we have 3 reports today. The first one is on the presidential search. So I've asked Michael Banner and Brooks from Isaacson Miller to come and lay out the process. We have a lengthy meeting today. It'll be our second meeting of the committee. But Michael will brief you on the process. What you all need to know is, this is the most important function the council ever plays. You know, we have a lot of other obligations and statutory requirements in terms of dictating what we're supposed to do, but this is the most important. And in fact, I've been chairman now for more than 10 years, and this is my first one. You know, so the last time we did this, you know, none of us at the table were here. But the way it works is, you know, we formed the search committee. We didn't form it, it was formed pursuant to SUNY regulations. By function of being chair of the council, I'm chair of the committee. We have 3 other members of the council on the search committee, Father Alex, Chris, and Linda Orman, who's en route. But the way it works is the search committee makes a recommendation to this council. We're the ones who have to approve the finalists and the names that get forwarded up to the SUNY Board of Trustees. And it's the SUNY Board of Trustees that actually approves the ultimate candidate. And so the committee is going to go through this process and try to whittle it down to a handful of semifinalists, and then this council will recommend 3 names up to the SUNY Board of Trustees, and each 3 of those names will have separate interviews. There's committees of the SUNY Board of Trustees. It's a very serious process, and there's a lot of different searches going on in the SUNY world. Some other presidents of some of the other colleges, some significant provost searches, but I believe, and you know, I've been told this is the most important search going on in SUNY right now. So a lot of people paying attention to what's going on, and it's our hope that we're going to have some, you know, terrific semi-finalists for this council to review and approve. And I forgot to mention, in addition to the 3 council members who are on the committee, my dear friend Shahir, who represents the student, is the student representative on the council. So we have a good, you know, working majority on the search committee, but it's this council that'll make the ultimate recommendation. And in terms of our timing, we're probably looking at, if everything went smoothly, this council making some decisions in February. And so, while we didn't discuss this, I was looking on the calendar. I want you to mark down February 10th as the next meeting. We always meet in February. It's the second Monday in February. But that date could change. And so if we're not ready and we may, and to avoid having to call a special meeting 2 weeks later, we may punt that meeting a week or, you know, a couple of weeks. So we only have to meet once. And then, so, you know, diary February 10th for now, and then we'll let you know towards the middle of January if we're sort of heading, you know, if we're remaining on schedule. But it's our goal to find the best, and we're not going to hold ourselves to some artificial, you know, self-imposed deadline. But that's where we are, and I'm going to ask Michael and Ernest if you'd walk the council through the process and where we are, and if you want to, you have a presentation on the, or you want to just stand up?
No, we can just
Or,
stand up.
yeah, you know, or you
Yeah,
wanna
thank you for.
join us, yeah, wherever you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the head of the table, or you know, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. You know, first of all, we thought we'd introduce ourselves. The council has our bios and a little bit about the firm on a page somewhere in the materials that you have. But Ernest, why don't you say something about yourself and your background?
Certainly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ernest Brooks. I'm a senior associate at Isaacson Miller. I work in searches across the firm in higher ed and the nonprofit landscape, and my background is in higher education administration and nonprofit leadership.
Yeah, and I'm Michael Baer. I'm partner of the firm, and I've been doing search for about 14 years. Most of my career has been in academe. I started as a political scientist, then was a department chair at a major research university, and then Dean of Arts and Sciences for 9 years. Moved to an urban research institution where I was provost for 8 years. and then went to Washington, where noisy people always wind up. And I was the senior vice president for the American Council on Education, which is a membership association of 1,600 colleges and universities, and then got into search 14 years ago. And don't add up all those years. We started this search 2.5 months ago by visiting campus for a couple of days and meeting with constituent groups across the campus so we could learn more about what people in various segments of the university, faculty, students, administration, and the committee felt about the needs of the institution and its next leader. From that, and reading many materials both on the web and materials that were sent to us, we put together a fairly lengthy position profile, which is a public document. It's on your website under the President's office. There is a presidential search subpage, and you can download that or read it online if you wish. And since then, we have been networking. And networking is very extensive. Relatively few people, even though we advertise, will apply to a job. Well, say relatively few people, it is relatively few. On the other hand, extraordinarily few people who are qualified for the job will apply. Most of the people as we network were not looking for jobs. And we've contacted literally hundreds of individuals, both prospects that we thought might be good for the position and also sources that we thought were in a position where they might know people that we should be in touch with. And then networks is exactly what it sounds like. We began to build a web of people that we're in touch with. And as we move forward, the committee, we will begin to share information we have about these individuals with the committee, and the committee will begin to narrow down the numbers of people that we found based on who they think will be a very good fit for Stony Brook. And they're going to have a large number of people that they have to narrow from, and they're going to be highly qualified people. And once they narrow it down to the next level, I began to do one-on-one interviews with these individuals, fairly lengthy interviews to find out about their background, what they've accomplished, what they've done, what the fit is like. Then I come back to the committee and describe that, what I've learned about the individuals, and the committee then decides who they would like to meet. And they will meet sometime in January, late January, a group of people that they've decided they want to learn about. The founder of our firm, which has been in existence since 1982, likes to describe the whole process as a learning process where we learn more and more about fewer and fewer people as we move through the process. The committee will then, after they interview a set of people, will send forward a names of, what we might call semifinalists to the local council, and that's when you begin to narrow down to the group that you're going to send forward to the SUNY board. The next steps in the search, beyond what I've just described, is really, after we narrow it down to the small set of people, do extensive referencing and background checks on these individuals so that we learn not just what they say about themselves, but what others say about them. And that gets shared to the SUNY board as they begin to make their decisions. Now, one of the things that we thought we would tell you is some of the things that we've heard about Stony Brook as we've talked to these large numbers of people. Ernest?
Sure. we've talked to people from all over the country, various institutions, public, privates, large, medium-sized, and Stony Brook's reputation in the marketplace is pronounced, and so you all should be proud and celebrate that. People know Stony Brook; it's on the map. People are particularly interested in the profile of the institution as a relatively young but large and thriving public R1 institution with AAU designation. People see strong leadership in the past and see that it's poised to continue to the next level, particularly with your growth in research, the health sciences, the international footprint, and so we've heard very positive feedback from the marketplace.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, and people are particularly pleased with the fact that Stony Brook is seen as an institution that has a real public commitment, both in terms of improving the economy of Long Island, of the region, the state, and beyond. And also, they're very pleased with a combination of the research that Stony Brook does with the fact that it's furthered social mobility for a large number of people. So that combination is fairly unusual across the major research institutions in the United States. So we're getting a lot of very, very positive feedback and a large number of people who, even those who aren't interested in the position, this has been a broadcasting and an advertising exercise for the institution. So we're open to answering questions. I will say that the search, once we get beyond the process, has to be confidential. The people we're talking to are in positions where if their name is exposed, they're going to say they're not a candidate, and they, rather than lie, they will withdraw if they've agreed to be in the search for a variety of reasons. The people that they work with will begin to doubt that they can be a leader if they're looking to leave. And secondly, just as your president and your deans are out trying to raise money through the development process, the advancement process, to support their programs, many of these individuals are working with potential donors that may be in the $100,000 range or the $10 million range. And if you were about to give an institution resources to support something what a leader is doing, and you find out that they're looking elsewhere, what do you do with your checkbook? You put it back in your purse or your pocket. So it really has to be very confidential.
Yes, that's a good point, Michael. We made it. Everybody on the committee had to sign non-disclosure agreements and confidentiality agreements, and so we're hopeful, pretty confident that will occur. Two things first. Let the record reflect that Council members Michael Smith and Linda Arman have joined us, and something I've neglected to mention. Remember, we're all volunteers, everybody on the council. And so, you need somebody to pull everything together and do a lot of the legwork to prep the committee for the information. And Michael and Ernest and their team is doing a great job, but Judy Griman and Rachel have been doing a terrific job, helping us perform our statutory duties. So I want to thank Judy and Rachel for doing a great job, and with a lot more to come. So as Michael said, so we have a meeting today after this meeting, and our goal today is not to identify who the candidates are. Our goal today is we're going to identify people we're interested in learning more information about. And then, as Michael said, he'll interview those individuals over the next month. And our current schedule is we're going to gather here on January 17th and identify those candidates we would like to interview. We have 2 dates set for the end of January in New York City, where we'll interview candidates all day long for 2 days. And again, if everything goes according to plan, perhaps by February 1st, we'll have some candidates for this council to consider at our February meeting. But as I mentioned too, we're not going to hold ourselves to self-imposed deadlines. If we're not satisfied or we want to continue, we'll continue. But that's where we are right now. And so I wanted to make sure that the council was briefed on where we are with the process. It's a good process, and what the schedule is looking like. Does anybody have any questions for Michael or Ernest? Okay. Are you happy with the process so far?
We are. We think it's going extraordinarily well. In fact, we're more than happy, and that the number of people we have to present to the committee today exceeds what we usually see of strong candidates. So it's going to be. I'm going to have to talk faster than my southern accent usually allows me to.
And Michael and Ernest have been good. I badger Michael sometimes daily, at least weekly, late night texts or emails or phone calls, and he's always been very responsive because, again, I'm taking this very seriously, and SUNY expects us to be taking this very seriously. And so that's where we are, and we'll keep you posted and give you another update perhaps in January, to at least in terms of the schedule. So Michael and Ernest, thank you very much. Feel free to stay here for the rest of the meeting, or you could leave and go prep for your other meetings.
Well, thank you. I think we're going to sneak out and go over and get the room all set up for the next meeting.
Very
But
good.
appreciate your inviting us.
Very good. Nobody else could sneak out, but they can. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, next up, I asked Judy to give us a report on our 2020 priorities. I'm sure you've been reading about the state's projected $6 billion deficit for 2020. That's never a good sign when we go in there with our tin cup every year when we're already hearing about their deficit. So I asked Judy to give us an update as to where things stand in Albany and what we're going to be advocating for next year.
This year we have a tin bathtub. Big enough. So I just want a couple slides to just give you a little bit of, I'm sorry, I'm afraid, to give you a little bit of context as to where we've been and why our ask is what our ask is. And then some context in terms of what's really happening with the state budget. And I have just a beautiful visual for that. So you can't see the numbers, but it really doesn't matter. What's important are the lines. And so the blue line is what our funding actually has been, and this is our base aid operating funds from the state. The state does fund, it's important for everybody to know, the state does fund our fringe benefits as part of all state employees' fringe benefits, so that's not included in this. This is just the base aid that comes to the campus. So the blue line, we had highs in the 08-09. It kind of crashed down in the Great Recession, and it has never recovered. There's been no increase. That's our blue line. The red line is the cost per, is this essentially state aid per student, and that changes based on two factors. One is that the dollars haven't changed, and the other is that our student population has grown. So that's gone down. What's the green line? The green line is if we had a 2% increase every year, that's what we would be. That's where we would be. And so this is really the chart that we've been using to kind of help everybody sort of really visualize what's been going on for the last 10 years in terms of SUNY state operating aid. We're using Stony Brook as an example. On top of that, the fact that, which you've heard before, you've heard me talk about before, we've had the state negotiates our labor contracts, and while everybody deserves all the raises that they have received, the reality is this chunk of time for these contracts, the state did not pay any additional sum of money, and so therefore every SUNY institution is struggling and working with how do we pay for that.
Guys, if you weren't clear on that, again, Albany negotiates the raises, but then they don't give us the money to pay for the increased raises. They just tell us to figure it out,
Right.
essentially.
Well, completely. Right.
It's a pretty good deal on their part.
And the only the one help, which was which was significant, and we are hoping for the second tranche of it, is that there was a retroactive component of the raises, and the legislature used some, I'll call it accounting change, to provide us with some money for the first tranche of the retroactive payment. It's not technically new money, it just comes in a different way. And we're hoping for the second tranche for the second retroactive payment. But besides that, there's been no increase. And so the only new revenue that's come in, certainly over the last, the 5 years of SUNY 2020, and then the last 3 years, is money from students' tuition and fees, is the only new revenue that's come in. And so the goal is really to begin to change this picture. The chancellor has certainly made an ask. She is not being quiet about the fact that 10 years of no increase is really not sustainable. And so we're working very closely with her team. Just to give you another little snapshot of this, gives you a sense of the shift from state support to tuition and fees. 09-10, 19-20, the blue is state support. The yellow is undergraduate tuition and the red is graduate tuition. So this is our snapshot. I'm assuming throughout SUNY it's going to look fairly similar.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a major change, and I would say this has happened in many institutions across public institutions across the country. Generally, state support goes down, tuition goes way up. In New York, state support went down or didn't increase, and tuition went up, not way up, because there's very limited tuition authority. So that's sort of the picture of how things have changed.
Hey, keep that chart up. Keep that. Shahir and Francesca, what are you hearing from your fellow students, and is there any statewide organized campaign the students are looking to do to help the institutions increase the blue portion of that pie so the yellow and red portion can decrease? Or not grow?
Sure. So there's been some of the students have organized as part of the graduate student organization to go to Albany. There is a lot of our discussions. We really try to push back on the student fees, so we're all feeling it.
Yes.
Certainly.
And that pie chart doesn't reflect fees, that's just tuition? Or does it reflect fees too?
That would be tuition and fees.
Okay.
Yeah, just to build upon that, last November I was actually able to sit in on a Senate Higher Education Committee and actually speak to a couple of legislators and council members as to, you know, how the state needs to increase base aid for, you know, all SUNY campuses, but specifically Stony Brook University. And we see the impact on different services, whether it be, you know, the counseling and psychological services on campus, or just in general different programs in the university. So I think there is a movement SUNY-wide in regards to the SUNY Student Assembly, but I'm positive that, you know, at least the undergraduate student government will be continuing to advocate for more funding for the university.
I have to just say, Shahir was a rock star at that hearing. So he said that sort of, you know, quietly, but he did a fantastic job of laying out what the impact of this is, and it was very helpful. And it was to the you know, higher ed committee that matters.
That's great. I'm not surprised.
Thank you.
And also, does the free college tuition and/or state or federal student aid, does it only cover tuition, or does it help with fees too?
Tuition is generally what's aidable, and so that's the other problem, because New York has very limited authority. So the legislature sets the up to amount for tuition increases. For 5 years it was 3%. For the last 3 it's been 2%, up to 2%. And then SUNY gets to set the rate within that. There have been more in fees, and fees are not aidable.
Got it.
And so it's not a great strategy.
Right.
Now, you know, I mean, the other side of it, and I've got a, you know, chart upon chart, but we're almost the, you know, what is it, 6th from the bottom of AAU public tuition. Our tuition is very low in comparison with other institutions like ours, very low. Which is I think actually recognition. Most people look at our tuition who are in the other public R1 AAU institutions, say, how do you do what you do with that tuition? But that doesn't mean that doesn't impact our students, and it doesn't mean that the state doesn't need to provide support, but our tuition is low in comparison to the others.
In several cases in the AAU, our out-of-state tuition compares with the in-state tuition.
Yes.
At the other
What is our
AAUs.
tuition, just out of curiosity?
So a little over 7,000 for in-state, 22,000 for out-of-state. And then fees are another, you know, $2,500 to $3,000. So
So what's the
way
all-in?
ahead. So all in, you're at about 10,000 and 25,000, 24,000 a tenant for in-state and out-of-state. And that's not including costs of attendance, right? Room, board, etc.
So just to give you a little bit of sense of capital, which has a similar story, when we were getting critical maintenance in the 77,000 million, we were doing okay. We were kind of, keeping this place humming with our sort of aging buildings. Then that sort of tanked as well, and we're, gradually making our way back. It's very difficult to manage the maintenance needs of this kind of a campus. It's large, with the greatest number of state buildings, I think, and there's a statistic there that I will have to get right. We have aging buildings. We also have some opportunities. So we have aging buildings that need significant amount of work. Some of them are, just safety. Some of them are, leaks. Some of them are literally the ceilings falling down on students and Javits. And so we have some significant issues with some of our buildings. We also have certain opportunities. So opportunities to do retrofitting that helps us to meet climate change goals and things like that, which would be great. They have a cost. And so we're constantly balancing a relatively small pool of money to fix that. So obviously, that's another part of our ask, and the Chancellor also has a request in to increase SUNY capital funding, and we're working with them. So what are our main requests? Increase the state operating aid, provide the second retro payment, which I explained. We always talk about increasing the tuition assistance program, the TAP program. This tuition is pegged at 2010, 2011 rates. That means that the campuses make up the gap. So if you get a TAP grant, you only get 2010 rates, and then we eat the rest. Tuition has increased since 2010. So our TAP gap, I think this year is, it's usually generally about $8 to $9 million. It's a significant amount of money that every institution that has students on TAP is facing. But it's another place where the legislature could just raise that tuition, reset the TAP program, and it would help everybody.
So if they reset it to the 2019 tuition rate, that could save us up to $9 million?
$9 million.
That's correct.
It would be
It's real money.
It's real money.
Yeah.
Yep, it's real money. One of the problems with resetting it is the TAP gap goes to all, it's public, it's private, it's all students. It's an expensive thing to reset. It should have been gradually reset every year, so now there's going to be this big cliff. But I don't know how long you can keep the TAP program at 2010 rates. Our big request on the capital side, in addition to just generally increasing the critical maintenance funding, is to finish off the funding for the engineering building. We've had, as Michael talked about, 19% of the degrees nationwide. We've had a 75% surge in enrollment in engineering and computer science. It's, highest number of engineering degrees in New York State, 19th in the country. We could continue to increase that, which is important. We don't have room for that. But also the new building would help us to have what I'm calling sort of these neighborhoods where our SOMAS and our engineers are working on climate change, where AI, we have so much interdisciplinary work that's happening around engineering, and this building would allow for that. And so we've secured $25 million in state funds already 2 years ago. That's helping with the planning. We know that we need to raise a significant chunk for the engineering building, but we're looking for an additional chunk of money from the state.
With my day job hat on at the LAA, we're also lobbying for the $50 million for the School of Engineering, as well as through the REDC hat that Linda and I sit on, because if we ever want to achieve our goal of creating that research corridor and to make it comparable to the research triangle in, say, North Carolina, or to ever become like the Silicon Valley or the Boston area, we need to be producing more engineers. Right now, we produce way fewer engineers than those regions, and one way to create that ecosystem and that innovation economy is by producing more engineers. And we're sort of capped, given our current space needs, as to how many we can produce, and if we had a new state-of-the-art facility, we could produce more. So it's not just a benefit for Stony Brook, it's a benefit to the entire Long Island and metropolitan economy.
Absolutely. And we appreciate LIAs doing work. We've had engineering CEOs, competitors who actually have gone to Albany to say, from Long Island, we need this. Senator Kaminsky is actively engaged. We actually just met with him on Friday and talked about the engineering building. He's actively engaged. The leader of the Senate, Andre Stewart Cousins, has been engaged on this. So, I think that we're doing much to drum up the support. Last year we'd hoped to get some money and they didn't do a capital bill. So therefore nobody got anything, but we're hoping
That's
this
another
year.
good point too. So earlier this year, Judy and I met with the new Long Island 6 of the state Senate delegation, and what we try to educate them. I think there's a perception out there that Stony Brook, oh, that's Ken Lavelle, or that's John Flanagan's university. No, this is Long Island's university. This is a university that benefits all of Long Island, and we need all the senators being advocates for it, and not just looking at this as, well, it's not in my district, so I don't really need to be concerned about it. And they got it, and they were very impressed. So we brought Todd here, and he was blown away by some of the facilities here. So it's important that they all view Stony Brook as such, and there's a couple of Stony Brook alumni in that new mix of senators too. So.
Yep.
That was worthwhile meetings.
We've just had two of those. Senator Martinez and Gorin were both just here and hearing our story, and Senator Stavisky, who is the chair of the Higher Ed Committee, and is in Queens. So we reminded her. She's also been here, and we've met with her in her office. But we reminded her that actually the number of our students and staff and faculty from Queens. She's actually a senator from Stony Brook, so she got that. She has a large part of her district is connected to this institution. So we have been working with the delegation and appreciate the help that Kevin has given us around that as well. The NCI, I'll skip to NCI for a second. The NCI designation, we've received a couple of tranches of funding for that, and we need sort of one more big push to get our NCI designation. Senator Gorin and Assemblymember Engelbright are deeply connected to that and are working hard with us around that. The NCI status will result in increased federal funding and a whole sort of different range of quality cancer care access for Long Island patients. And so we're hoping to get sort of that last chunk of funding. And then the hospital, so in the last session, all operating aid for the 3 SUNY hospitals was wiped out of the budget. And obviously that's a significant issue. In addition, so we have been advocating to get that put back in. One way that those campuses could be helped is to have the state essentially just pick up their debt service in the way that it does for all SUNY buildings, for all SUNY capital needs. The state pays the debt service, and so you could just treat those 3 hospitals in the same way, 3 SUNY hospitals in the same way you treat all other SUNY borrowing, which would sort of be a trade-off from the operating funds. So we're working on that this year. The hospitals have also, downstate, upstate, and Stony Brook have been getting $50 million a year in capital funding over the last, I think, 3 or 4 years, and we just want to continue that. And so that would help too. So that's sort of our biggest set of asks. There are some non-budget items that we're watching. There's always some procurement legislation that we take a look at, and we're not sure where things are going. There's a bill already in the hopper for name, image, and likeness of athletes that sort of takes California to another level, but I think that the Sean has already been working with us and working with legislators, and our hope is that they'll sort of stand down while we wait for the NCAA to make a decision and see what the NCAA is going to do, but I think that piece of legislation will be swirling as well. There's always a bunch of pieces of legislation that Stony Brook as an employer watches, and so we'll be watching those. So what's the difficulty. I used this last year and I pulled it up, which is the storm on the horizon. So there's a $6.1 billion hole in the Medicaid budget, which the governor has talked about extensively. There's also the governor continues the 2%, not going above 2% in growing the state budget. And continued pressure from K-12, from healthcare, from transportation. And so, this isn't an easy sale to get additional money for SUNY. My sense, having talked to a lot of people, is I think that you may see agencies getting cuts. I don't think you'll see SUNY getting cuts. I don't think that I think it's going to be really difficult for us to get increased operating aid, maybe some more capital. But we're, working very closely with SUNY, working very closely with our folks, both on campus. The unions are doing a rally today about funding. I mean, we're working very closely, I think, this year more than ever with students, with unions, with everybody sort of having one voice about what's important for supporting SUNY. Great relations with the Long Island 6, great relations with the heads of the higher ed committees, both Senate and Assembly. Working with the governor's folks, so we press on. What's helpful for you guys, I think, is just to get rid of that ugly picture, is you're our ambassadors, and so I think that as you're talking to people, as you're out and about, I think it helps for you all to say, it's been 10 years since SUNY campus has got additional operating aid. I was in a building and saw the roof falling down. It would be helpful to get critical maintenance. I mean, engineering, we need more engineering degrees on Long Island and in the region. Stony Brook's already, doing the greatest number in the state, 19th in the country. We can make that even better. So I think that you guys as ambassadors in all of the ways and all of the places that you sit would be helpful. Where you do your own legislative agendas, as Kevin has, the LAA has scooped in some of Stony Brook's key priorities, and if your organizations do that, that would be great. Yeah.
What's the top 3? Because that's a big wish list.
Operating aid, critical maintenance, and the engineering building.
Very good. Any other questions for Jude? Jude, I don't know if it's for you or maybe Carol, but if the biggest component of the $6 billion budget deficit that the governor has identified comes from Medicaid, does the hospital get a big chunk of its revenues from Medicaid? And if the state is cutting back its percentage of its contributions towards Medicaid, is that another big storm on the horizon for us?
Yes, it significantly impacts the revenue for the hospital.
Right. And particularly if there's any change in the DISH program, which is the reimbursement program, if there's any change or cut to DISH, we will have significant problems at our hospital.
Something else to pay attention to.
Yes.
Michael?
I'd just like to chime in on the NCI issue, just to remind the group. NCI designation, it's not simply a bells and whistles designation. It unleashes a lot of federal money in support of research and clinical activity when you get that designation. And I'd also mention, I won't say if, I'll say when we get the NCI designation. It'll be the first NCI designated clinical center on Long Island. And if you think about that for a minute, that's pretty striking. The NCI clinical centers are in the city and elsewhere in the state. There are none on the island. Cold Spring Harbor is an NCI research facility, but not a clinical facility, obviously. So this is really important for the people of the island.
And who makes that decision?
The National Institutes of Health.
Right, but can they be influenced by, say, Chuck Schumer or Kirsten Gillibrand or our congressional delegation, or do they not pay attention to that?
They pay attention, and Senator Schumer's already written letters over the course of time. I think he actually just did one, and so his staff is very engaged. Yep.
I mean, it's a set of metrics that we have to measure up to.
Right.
Unfortunately, it becomes a kind of receding horizon phenomenon. They keep increasing the metrics each year. So the sooner we can get this done, the better we're going to be.
And other institutions, they only do a
Yeah, the
limited number of
competition
these.
increases.
So you have to kind of get your place in the door, or somebody's going to jump in front of you. Which is, we're racing the clock. We're racing a lot of things. And again, I think that so Steve Engelbright has done great work over the last 2 years in bringing some money to this, and Senator Gorin just did a tour of the Cancer Center and is really engaged on this. So I think that we've got some very good advocates up in Albany.
Is the other two systems on Long Island, either the Catholics or Northwell, or do they have something similar, and are they looking for designation, and are we in any type of competition?
Not as far as I know.
If they don't have designation, what they're
Yeah.
doing, I don't know.
They're certainly building their clinical practices, but we're well ahead with our research and our clinical trials.
Well, we met our metrics, have we met
We're
what we met?
continuing to identify opportunities for improvement and closing any gaps in order to ensure that we're hitting all of those NCI standards.
I think
So it's a work in progress and it continues.
we need to push the number of patients in our clinical trials. I think that's probably our
Yes.
biggest issue.
And that's part of the request for funding, is to allow us to do some of that.
Yeah, Rich Reader just meant, on the research side, we've met the metrics. It's now on the clinical side,
So the
particular
clinical
clinical
side is-
trials.
That's what I'm,
Yeah.
Michael?
No, I was just gonna ask how the new Phillips Cancer Center in Southampton, is there any relationship there?
Yes, well, in terms of assisting in provision of the clinical enrollments
Yeah.
for those research studies, absolutely. It's another source to be able to provide that opportunity for our patients. And in addition, the physicians from Stony Brook University Hospital and Stony Brook Medicine also support the Phillips Center. So in that respect, there's continued communication and affiliation with those clinical enrollments.
Anything else? All right, Judy, thank you very much.
Okay, great, thanks.
Next up, we have Kimberly Joy Dixon regarding a presentation on student career outcomes. And Kimberly, as I mentioned before, is also serving with me, Chris, Father Alex, Linda, and Shahir on the search committee. So I look forward to spending the entire day with you today.
Yes, absolutely.
And who else do you have with you today?
Good morning, everyone. My name's Andrea Lepak. I'm here this morning to share with you some important information about the work the Career Center does. So we're so thankful for this opportunity to talk with you this morning. We'll start by introducing ourselves. So my name's Andrea, as I mentioned. I've been here, actually, I just celebrated my 20th work anniversary, which was scary yet exciting because 20 years sure went fast. But it's been a wonderful opportunity to work here for the past 20 years. I spent most of my career managing our employer relations team, so developing relationships with companies that want to hire our amazing students. Our students are an easy sell, but those relationships definitely take time. And then more recently, we've handed that over to Kimberly, and I manage more of the operations in the office. So we wanted to start today by sharing our mission with you, which is basically to educate students and alumni about the career development process, empowering them to make informed career decisions, helping them to prepare for the transition to internship opportunities and full-time work or graduate school, depending on what their interests are, and then of course to connect them with our hiring organizations so that they can find those opportunities. So how do we do that? Well, the Career Center is the hub for all of the activity, but it certainly happens across campus. So we have an ecosystem of people who help us with our mission. And one of the things we do, we think really well, is develop partnerships and collaborations with other departments across campus to get our work done. So it would be silly for us to think that these kinds of conversations aren't happening outside of the Career Center. Students talk to faculty and staff that they've developed relationships with, that they know and trust about career decisions, so we work really closely with them to arm them with the information they need to make that possible and to have those meaningful conversations. So how do we do it? We have 15 staff members in the Career Center. We serve the entire campus, so we serve undergraduate students, graduate students, and alumni, which not all career centers do, so we also serve our alumni as well. We adopted this career communities model, I want to say about 3 years ago, so this became a national trend in career services, and we were an early adopter of the model. And it's basically a framework for us to be able to share custom and push custom information and services out to students based on their career interests. So students join a community not by their major, but based on the careers that they're interested in. And they can join one or more depending on how varied their interests are. And it provides us an opportunity to, like I said, really push out that customized information to them and services based on those opportunities that they're interested in. Within our career communities, kind of interwoven throughout, we have a lot of diversity programming and recruiting initiatives, which Kimberly's going to talk about in a moment. So we work really closely and have special programming for our underrepresented students. We partner with athletics to provide support to our student athletes, veteran students, and students with disabilities, just to name a few. Okay, so basically the services that kind of fall into these 3 buckets, we're able to help our students through the education process, through individual career coaching appointments. But as you can see from our staff numbers, it would be impossible for us to meet all the students. So our career communities model has provided us with an opportunity to also provide services in a group format. So we offer meetups for each of our career communities so they can come in and meet with our career coaches and talk about career development issues among other students who have similar interests, which has been helpful. We have a number of programs and workshops, and many of these are offered in collaboration with the partners you saw on the first screen, many of our academic departments, as well as other departments such as EOP and the Office of Multicultural Affairs. And then we have some technology tools that help us get the job done as well. So we have a program called Vault that provides a lot of excellent career information to students, as well as a new tool called What Can I Do with a Major In that helps students understand that connection between major and careers. In terms of preparation, the key here is really helping them to get the experience they need before they graduate. So experiential education is key in our mission and the work that we do. Whether it's through internships or co-op or an on-campus job, it doesn't really matter as long as our students are getting some kind of experience before they graduate, which we know is what employers are looking for. So that really helps to prepare them. We do the obvious. We hate when people think we're the place to go for just a resume review. We of course help students with their resume, but we do so much more. So we help them develop their personal brands, build their LinkedIn profiles. Obviously, we want to help them learn how to communicate effectively in interviews, and we solicit the help of our partners in this process, our employer partners, which is excellent because students love to get that support from employers. We can tell them the same thing, but they hear it differently when it comes out of the mouth of a recruiter that wants to hire them. And at the same time, it provides a platform for our industry partners to be able to connect and network with our students while teaching them. So it's kind of a non-traditional way for them to make some connections with our students. And then, of course, we want to make those connections. And the way we do that, primarily probably what you're most familiar with or have heard about is our job and internship fairs. We have 10 per academic year. They're split up into different industry areas, and we get a large amount of students that come out for those fairs. We get probably just over 5,000 that come to those fairs and a little over 400 employers who attend those events. We collaborate very closely with alumni affairs to engage alumni in this process. So we have employer and alumni meetups, we have a student alumni networking mixer each year, and we have our alumni mentor network, which is an opportunity for us to connect students with alumni to learn about their career fields of interest. The last thing, well, 2 things. Technology here too, we use Handshake, which is our job posting and recruiting system to connect students with employers through online. And then we also just recently, a couple years ago, started a student professional development fund. We've raised some money to help support the cost for students to go on conferences because we recognize that allowing them to go to these national conferences provides access to more opportunities. Some students were going, the ones who could afford it, and they were coming back with these amazing internships and job offers. And it kind of broke our heart to hear that some students couldn't go just because they couldn't afford it. So we started this student professional development fund to support them, and this is just an example of one of our students who was able to attend the Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers conference this past fall in October in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She was able to connect with another female scientist, and it's a great opportunity for them to develop those external connections through these opportunities as well. So just a few quick numbers. Last year we saw over 10,000 students were engaged with the career services that we provide. The top 10 majors, the ones that utilize the services the most, pretty consistent with our enrollment numbers in terms of top 10 majors, which isn't a surprise. And the breakdown between undergraduate and graduate and alumni is about 80-20, and that would be the same for our international versus domestic as well. This is just some statistics regarding Handshake. So we started using Handshake in 2015 because it's a network system that employers use with universities across the nation. So when we signed on with Handshake, it increased our numbers in postings. So if you look in 2010, you probably can't see the numbers, but we had 5,500 job postings. And just last year, we had 47,000, close to 48,000. So the amount of opportunities and the variety of opportunities has expanded significantly. And of course, the applications have risen as the job postings have as well. So just a few keynotes about experiential education that I had mentioned. The Career Center manages a course called EXT 288 and 488. 288 is for underclassmen, 488 is for upperclassmen. And this course is designed so that students who want to do internships that aren't traditionally related to their major can still gain academic credit. So for example, psych major that wants to go into business, the psychology department may not want to give them psychology credit for that experience, so we provide a platform for them to be able to do that. You can see the numbers have increased significantly by 100% over the last 10 years, and we saw a great increase when the EXP Plus requirement was introduced as part of the Stony Brook curriculum, which is really excellent for us because it created added visibility to our office and the work that we do, which is good and bad in terms of the demand and the number of students we see. And then the last area I'll mention before I turn it over to Kimberly is our student employment program. So we took over on-campus student employment a few years ago. And we've really worked hard to transform on-campus student employment to a high-impact practice. So what does that mean? It means for a long time, on-campus jobs had the stigma as they were just the on-campus job for students to make a little cash to help support their costs of going to school. But we really saw it as an opportunity to provide a platform for them to gain experience just like they do off campus, right here on campus. So we have a full-time staff member under our Director of Experiential Programs that works with departments to create meaningful opportunities on campus for students. It's great because many of them don't have transportation, and so it provides, like I said, that platform for them to get experience right here on campus. And we work with those supervisors to help them also process with students their learning experiences on the job and how they can communicate those to employers. And this is just an example of a student that works in our office. This is her second year with us, and we've been able to give her elevated responsibilities, as her experience with us grew over the past 2 years. All right, so I will turn it over to Kimberly.
So I've been at Stony Brook for 19 years, and the first couple of years I was focused on helping students who were interested in business functions, and then transitioned into helping with our employer relations team. And so part of the role that I've had has been focused on diversity. So over the last 17 years, we've had a need to really focus in on diversity recruiting initiatives because industry was coming to us wanting to hire students based on certain criteria. They wanted us to help them find the best and brightest underrepresented students, best and brightest athletes, best and brightest veterans. And we know we have that student population here on campus, but whether or not they were ready to be put in front of an employer, if they were prepped enough to be able to really speak to their skills, we needed to create a platform for that. So in doing so, we created a few programs that have allowed us to create a viable pipeline of diverse candidates for different areas. Mainly focused in terms of the types of companies that were coming to us for this. It was business functions, technology, engineering, and there's been an increase for diversity recruiting efforts in the healthcare and human services area over the last 5 years as well. So our programming has evolved to help with that. Part of the programming that we have, one of which is my pride and joy, I'm really proud about, is called the Diversity Professional Leadership Network. It's a program that's designed for undergraduate, underrepresented students. It's a 1-year program, and we've had this program for over 12 years. What's great about it is that it helps us. Andrea mentioned earlier that we make connections and partnerships. We have host companies, employers who work with us over the last 12 years that provide a professional mentor for each of the students in the program. We have up to 50 students in the program in any one academic year, and each of them has a professional mentor at one of the companies that want to recruit Stony Brook students. And these students are also hopefully guaranteed a first round interview for positions at those companies. So it helps us to create what industry wants, but also obviously create opportunities for our students. We have other programs that focus on freshmen and sophomores, because we have an increase in employers that want to talk to students and connect with them much earlier than their junior and senior year, and have certain specialized internship opportunities for them as well. In addition to that, again, we've made connections with off-campus entities to provide opportunities for women who are interested in STEM, for women who are interested in international relations as well, and you'll hear a little bit more about that later. And one of our newest programs has been focused on helping students who identify with the LGBTQ community, providing them with career prep and understanding on how to find the career paths that work for them, given their circumstances. And then, in addition to connect our students on a regular basis to employers, we host regular recruiting events that bring companies to campus that are focused on the specific diversity recruiting initiatives. So we have we have programs like that in the fall and the spring. And what I'm also very proud of is we, again, collaborate with departments on campus that really will help us with that pipeline. So we connect with EOP, with WISE, with CSTEP, with the Office of Multicultural Affairs, and we host specialized events with them, and we provide services for them one-on-one in group settings that help us increase that pipeline of viable candidates.
And Kimberly's modest. I just want to mention that the DPLN program was nationally recognized by our association, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and that year she actually won 5 awards from 5 different organizations. So she's too modest to tell you that.
So we also have a lot of student success from coming out of our diversity initiatives, the DPLN program being one of them. This is a student, Christian, who was part of our DPLN program last year. He was paired with PSEG as one of the host companies. They hired him as an intern, and this year they provided him with a full-time offer. He's still weighing his options, but he has an offer on the table, which is awesome. Also, Teddy was a student who great potential, but really did not know how to present himself, and so the DPLN program has been able to help him with that. He was hired by one of our host companies, Broadridge Financial Solutions, as an intern, and now is working full-time at Lockheed Martin. And he had an opportunity to go to a few conferences last year that helped him to land that full-time gig, so that was great for him. Also, Isa, she is a phenomenal young lady. She was phenomenal from the start, but we connected her with an organization as part of our diversity recruiting initiatives. We connect specifically with 4 to 5 nationally known third-party internship programs, one of which is called the T. Howard Foundation, which provides internships for underrepresented students in the media industry. So Isa was a 2-time intern with the T. Howard Foundation at NBC Universal and at Univision, and now is a full-time employee community manager at Declare. But all of this runs through all the things that we're doing with diversity recruiting. So what sets us apart as a career center, and everyone in this room should be very proud of your career center here at Stony Brook. One of the things that we're really proud of is that we have secured $2.5 million in grants, and there aren't other career services or career centers across the country that are partnering with faculty to have such grants. So we're really happy about that. Again, we understand the importance of really marrying what we do in career services to what's happening throughout the campus to prepare our students, and we've done that in several different ways. Also, our staff, although we're 15, which may not sound like a lot, we're doing great things, not just locally but nationally as well. We've all received around 77 leadership roles throughout our office, 21 external awards, 9 SUNY Chancellor awardees in the Career Center, and 12 Student Affairs Awards. And as you can see, again, from various local, regional, and national associations that we're receiving these awards. And we will continue to do so to make Stony Brook proud. So we can't do what we do for students without connecting them to great opportunities. So we spend a great deal of our time, as Andrea mentioned earlier, nourishing and championing with employers and getting them to not just recruit once, but coming back year after year for opportunities. So this is just a listing of some of the dedicated employers who recruit year after year for Stony Brook students, and as you can see, it's a variety of industries and types of positions as well. So to continue to make sure that we are providing candidates that have what employers need, what industry is looking for. Industry has told the world that these are some of the career competencies that they expect students to have when they graduate. So students are getting those through their internships, they're getting those through their on-campus jobs, they're getting that through their research opportunities, through the projects, but they don't know that they're getting it, and they do not know how to share that with others. So our job is to really focus in on helping them one-on-one, but also working with faculty, doing more with faculty to help faculty to understand what you're already providing in the classroom is helping our students do just this, and how we can make that more transparent. So what does our future look like? We need to scale more. We'll never be able to just one-on-one be able to provide the services that we need, so we need help. We need help across the board. We want to be able to collaborate more with faculty so that we can connect those competencies that I just mentioned to the curriculum in a more meaningful way for students to see and understand how to communicate that to industry. We want to develop relationships with external organizations and on-campus departments to increase opportunities for students. As you can see from that handshake listings, there are a lot of positions. We want to increase that, and we want more students to be able to apply to those opportunities. We want to transform the work study positions so that we can maximize what our students are learning in terms of their career development and helping them to get that. And we want to increase the number of paid on-campus positions as well. We need our students to be able, while they're in school, to be comfortable and have more money while they're in their academics. We want to expand the career support via our broad-based fee proposal, which we did not get last year, but we are championing it again, and we're hoping that Rick is going to be our champion. He is our champion, so he's going to make that happen for us, which will allow us to expand the services that we already are doing a great job at, but we can and should be doing more in comparison to what we're doing. And we need to raise money for funds for a new facility. There are a lot more that we have great minds. We think we have our imagination can run with us, but we need the facilities to be able to do that. So in our future, we hope to be able to move towards that so we can add more value to what Stony Brook already offers for our students. So this is just a picture. You see our staff down there. We're small but mighty. I just wanted to share pictures with you of alumni that come to campus that help recruit our students. Also the work that we do with international students and employers. These are the stakeholders. These are the people that we serve and the people that we need to continue to help with all that we do. Good.
That's great.
Any questions?
Any questions for anybody here? No. Very impressive. Are you guys located in this building, or where are you located?
We're located in the Melville Library.
Melville Library.
We like to say the ground floor, at the bottom of the zebra path, not the basement.
I do have a question. You know, the slide you had on the usage rate, well, it wasn't rate, it was basically ranking usage of the center by major, which said was mapping essentially, major volume. It's just interesting to see that no humanities programs were represented up there, and yet we hear a lot, in the literature and in journalistic coverage about higher education and about the crisis in humanities degrees and throughput to jobs and careers. So it's just striking to me.
Yeah.
That,
It's definitely.
one argument would be that there should be a higher use, right, than among some of the disciplines you had represented there, where the job markets are very robust.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
And on that handshake job, is that like a LinkedIn for students, or is it something different?
It is. It started out as purely just a job posting system, and now they've enhanced the tool to be more like a LinkedIn. So students can build their profiles just like a LinkedIn profile. Employers can go in and search the database by keyword and download resumes and communicate with students through the system, and then they can communicate with each other. So from student to student, they can look at each other's profiles and network with each other, as well as alumni in the system. So it really is becoming more like a LinkedIn for college students.
Great. And in the future, if you guys have, again, as Judy referred, we sort of are the ambassadors in the community for the university. If there's a particular company that you've been trying to get in through the door to help the students and you haven't been able to, if you want to run it by several of us, maybe we know folks there and we could help you get that foot in the door. So another resource for our students.
We will definitely
Thank
take you
you.
up on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea and Kimberly, and
Thanks.
we'll see you later. All right. Last but not least, we have Rick Gatto, who's going to talk about promoting student safety, health, and welfare. Again, one of our biggest roles here, in addition to finding the president, is overseeing and promulgating regulations on all types of student issues, student conduct, student safety, and student health. So quite appropriate, Rick, for you to give us an update.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. So, as Kevin mentioned, we'll talk a bit about student safety, health, and wellness and some of the initiatives we've taken at Stony Brook to support this. And as I look around the room, I'm just thinking of all the partners with the President's Office, with University Police, the hospital we're eternally grateful for, and student referrals on matters related to safety, health, and wellness. Our faculty are key players and the student affairs staff are key players as well. So when I joined the student affairs team 2 years ago, we already had a strategic plan in place, and one of the priorities we looked at was the very first one, which, and I always think of this from the Maslow's hierarchy of needs standpoint, where what are the foundational things we need to ensure that our students are successful? And that is safety. It's safety, their health, and their wellness. So these are 4 questions that I posed to our team for us to consider as we developed initiatives going forward. How can we promote and ensure a healthy and safe campus community? What does a cutting-edge, proactive, integrated student care model look like? What peer-based and team-based models best support and promote student wellness? And how can we mitigate any health or safety risks on our campus? And I'll look to my legal team. I never thought I'd be in a role where we'd be mitigating risk as much as we try to do in our work every day. And thinking about these 4 questions in the context of the student experience, I try to think, what's the right visual that talks about what a student goes through the college experience? And it's this. This is actually a visual I share with every new student in orientation, because part of what I want to share with students is that I think our students, our CWOLs, are amazing students, and they come in with the hope and the dream that it's going to be a straight line to the finish, and that flag is graduation. But we know in reality that students face challenges, obstacles, and struggles, and so part of our role, this is not just student affairs, but as a university, we need to help students overcome obstacles and to say, plow ahead no matter what obstacles facing you. We're here to provide safety nets, we're here to challenge and support students, and to help them be successful. So I'd like to just go through a few of our initiatives with you, or things that we've been doing over the last couple of years. So one I wanted to share is that some of you may know the building in front of the stadium is referred to forever as the infirmary, and we're trying to strike that from the language because it's so much more than an infirmary. We are actually renaming it the Student Health and Wellness Center. A sign's being made now, and in that building it includes both our CAPS, our Counseling and Psychological Services team, and our Student Health team. We're also poised to do a building expansion because that is the original building from many decades ago, and as our student populations expanded, the needs have expanded, we need more physical space. So we thank you to money through the President's area and our facilities team and student affairs. We'll be adding over the next hopefully year or two a 3,000 square foot addition to the front of the building that will become our new waiting room, which will allow our current waiting to become a additional exam rooms for student health, and then upstairs would be additional counseling rooms. Last year, as part of our integrated model, we also introduced a patient health questionnaire because having both counseling and health in the same building is a real benefit in that if a student goes in to see a nurse or a doctor for a physical ailment, we now ask them questions also related to mental health because we know the two are integrated. We look at a holistic model. And so based upon answers to those questions, our clients, our patients may be referred to our CAPS area. We've also done extensive training this summer for our healthcare professionals related to LGBTQ student needs. Knowing there are some specific questions needs students have, we've actually done that to make sure that students feel that they're welcome and that the practitioners who are supporting them have the correct information to be supportive. MMR immunizations, while it seems kind of like one of those routine things that we do, in fact, New York State allows each SUNY campus a 30-day grace period to have immunizations recorded. We are one of the few campuses that actually moved it last year to day 1. because we want to make sure that our students are immunized and not waiting a long period of time and create any risk. So this past fall, we were able to achieve 99% immunization by day 1, and then followed up with the last group of students. We also do Let's Talk with our counseling staff, and that is counselors really out throughout the residence halls and lounges, making sure that there's a presence there so that students feel there's a more casual atmosphere to talk to a counselor if they maybe don't want to go necessarily for one-on-one counseling to the center.
Hey Rick, on the immunizations, I know it's a very hot political issue here on Long Island for the K through 12, but once the kids hit 18 and they're on campus here, basically the parents don't have a say, and we could say you show your immunization or you can't enroll. Or is there any discretion, and can parents or the students themselves object based on some of the fears that are out there?
Sure. So within SUNY there was a proposal to actually require immunization even before enrollment, but a lot of schools rejected that because they were concerned about enrollment. So that was kind of put to the side, but schools were asked to try to improve the timeliness of when students reply, for the information. Fortunately, I know there's a new database that has allowed all the records from K-12, allows us to access that, which has improved the ability to get the information much earlier. So we're able to be in compliance with a large portion, especially anybody who's a New York State resident, a lot easier. But there are still challenges with getting it. If students, it's really not about an age issue with getting it. We require, there's no, on the college level, there's not a religious exemption for that. I know in K-12 they allow it, but not at the college level.
Okay. That should have been my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
CAPS after hours, this is another really important area as well. Again, we are a 24/7 environment, so we actually contracted with an outside company that provides after hours 24/7 coverage, so students have a concern about themselves or others, they can call CAPS after hours, and we follow up. I also want to add too, because of demand on the counseling center, if we look year over year, and this follows the national trend, over the last 3 years, our student use of CAPS has increased by 15% each year for the last 3 years. And so this past year, fortunately through additional resources, we've been able to add 6 additional staff members. Among the group includes what we call clinical case managers. Prior to having this role, we had all counselors who would potentially refer a student to an external provider, external resource. They had to have full knowledge of all the options, say on Long Island or in Suffolk County. Now we have 3 clinical case managers that cover both CAPS and student health, that they become the centralized experts in terms of knowledge of all the community resources. So now the counselor's role is to really provide the clinical services, then refer to the case manager, who then may refer outside internally or externally and have much more expert knowledge. So I think it's been a much better system for us. The other thing we've done, we're actually in the process, we've just wrapped up interviews for finalists for 2 diversity and inclusion coordinator positions. We know, based on student feedback and our own the reflection of our student body, we know we need to add more diversity, and that actually includes male counselors as well to our counseling staff. So we're hopeful that in the next couple of weeks we brought in 4 excellent finalists that we will now have 2 additional staff brought on for that.
Refresh our recollection, what does CAPS stand for?
Sure, it's Counseling and Psychological Services.
Thanks.
We have also in SASE, which are Student Accessibility Support Center, so supporting students with disabilities. We're the only school and first school in SUNY to have created what we call a sensory room. And it's textiles, it's visuals, it's ways to actually calm students, and particularly in the way it's set up now. Before students come into SASE to take a proctored exam, they can go sit in the room and kind of relax. We have kind of bubble screens. If you ever want to stop by, it's in the ECC building, and it's a great way for students to come in and relax. We also are looking at safety, health, and wellness in a much broader context. Michael and I were having this conversation the other day, and I was sharing that there's this perception that I feel mentally well only if I go to have a one-on-one therapy appointment. And in fact, you just can't scale it to that level. And so we're trying to look at how do we look at the community at large and focus on wellness more broadly. And so one of the areas we've done a lot of work is in the rec center, Recreation and Wellness Center. If you haven't been to the facility, it's absolutely gorgeous. About 2,500 students actually go to the space every single day. And we have 46 fitness classes. We actually have a nurse on site. We have a massage chair. There are just other ways that we try to ensure that students are developing skills around wellness beyond necessarily going for therapy. We also, for safety reasons, we developed a Good Samaritan policy a couple years ago. And this past year, you actually all had approved at the May meeting a hazing amnesty policy. So if the students, it's a see something, say something. If there's a concern, we want you to raise it with us so that we can be as proactive as possible in addressing any concern. Also, we had an ADA working group, and we have the President's Committee on supporting ADA issues on the campus. And we ensure that based upon student feedback, these are everything of making either it's accessible to a room, it may be ensuring that all of our communications are ADA accessible for students for any events happening, so we've been very proactive in that area. We're also now, we've had our food pantry on campus for several years with the new union opening up, which is going to be I think a showstopper for the campus once it's open. We will be moving our food pantry to that building, so it'll be actually a larger space as well. We also created this past fall what we call a Council for Campus Activities, because I think when we think about wellness, again, it's the broader feeling, do I feel that I have a sense of belonging, and am I part of this community we call Stony Brook? And so this council includes broad representation of FSA, Stoller Center, our student activities team, all the areas of campus that actually do programming, so that we can create a master calendar of everything that happens on campus, and particularly related to enhancing weekend life. We've now reintroduced lots of off-campus trips on the weekend, and those have become incredibly popular. The other part I wanted to share too is Cork, which is an app that we introduced about 2 years ago on campus. And we introduced an orientation, and it includes every club and organization on campus and everything happening for students on the campus. So we just hit 15,000 downloads, which is fantastic, because that is now the tool that students use to see what's going on the campus. I also wanted to mention that our peer-based prevention programs, there's so much in the literature that talks about the importance of peers, because there aren't enough of our staff and faculty to help in every situation, and the peer engagement is really important. And so a few examples I wanted to share. Some of you may know the Red Watch Band program, which we're really proud. That started at Stony Brook 10 years ago, and it has been introduced now nationally. Stony Brook also has done a lot of work with local high schools, training high school students related to this as well, and it is to reduce toxic drinking. We also have QPR, which stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer. So again, a suicide prevention program.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Every item is really terrific, but I don't understand them all. What's the Red Watch?
So the Red Watch Band is basically, it's to train peers to identify signs of potential alcohol overdose, so to reduce any risk to alcohol overdose, and if they see any signs, to then make sure that it's reported, so to prevent a student death, for example, related to alcohol overdose. And QPR is that, so it's, and by the way, these are about anywhere from 2 to 4 hour training sessions that peers go through with our professional staff, so they know how to see the signs and then to make appropriate referrals.
And on your slide before this, on the food pantry, do we have a lot of students that are going hungry? And how is the pantry stocked? Is it primarily through employees and other students, or does the community have an opportunity to donate to the food pantry?
Great question. So the food pantry, which was started on campus about 3 years ago, it's currently in an 800 square foot area. It'll go to about a 1,200 square foot area in the new union. Right now, it's all based on donations. It's all non-perishables at this point, but we are looking to potentially do refrigeration and other options with it. So we've been working with our FSA team to talk through that a little bit more. Our Center for Civic Justice, as well as partnerships with the School of Health Technology and Management and Campus Residences, basically currently run the food pantry based upon student volunteers who run it. So it's really no questions asked. It's actually for students, faculty, and staff who want to use it. Periodically throughout the year, they put out calls for donations, so anybody can donate goods at any time in the space.
Got it, thanks.
Sure.
But Kevin, just the extent of food insecurity and potential homelessness among students, I mean, not just at Stony Brook, but across American higher ed it has grown and is much higher than people realize. I talked with Rick about this, colleagues at Cal State Fullerton with whom I was in touch, a year ago. That's a large campus, 60,000 students. They estimate 1/3 of their students are housing insecure, ranging from living in their cars to so-called couch surfing, with their friends through the semester. That's a lot of students. Yeah.
And SUNY, just to point out, recently did a food insecurity survey, which showed actually across the system about at some point in the semester, about 1/3 of the students reported some form of food insecurity. So for just so everyone's aware, in our meal plan system right now, what's really helpful is we used to have systems where it would all be just a declining balance by dollar amounts, and people then could spend that and be done and be food insecure by Thanksgiving, for example. If they spend all their money now, it's actually done by a meal swipe system. So there's a really greater assurance in the way the system is set up to ensure that all students, they'll never be without a meal of a student on a meal plan. So there are, I think, some steps that we can take as an institution, the way we structure our meal plan to make sure that it reduces any food insecurity. But for anybody who's not a resident student, they're not on a meal plan, and so there are always those concerns come up. But again, no questions asked about anybody who goes to the food pantry at all, and I'll share a little bit more in a minute about our student support team that also works through these issues. So I mentioned red wash ban, QPR, and the third one is green dot, so that's also to prevent sexual violence. So this is an example of one of the trainings that we do periodically with student groups. And one of the most recent ones we did is actually Narcan training. So obviously we know being in college related to heroin overdose, college attendance is a protective factor. But we've done incredible partnership with Kate Valeris, who's our health educator, as well as Kathy Marone from the sociology department, one of our faculty, and our CHIL interns and University Police Department have all done a great job. And so this session actually trained 400 students related to Narcan use. And I figured I'd show you one of the most favorite programs of students, PALS, which is Pet Away Life Stress. So our counseling team brings in pets during the year, and it is incredibly popular and very relaxing. So I highly encourage it. Couple things too with Cognito. This is through a grant that we received from SAMHSA. This is a suicide prevention grant, and Cognito is a 40-minute online interactive tool that is meant primarily for faculty, but we've actually put it out to all faculty and staff. And you have a virtual coach. And I think I've done the simulation myself, and what I really like about it is it gives a faculty member tools and the right language to use if there is a student of concern sitting across from you or in your class. Because I think sometimes faculty, they don't know what to say or what to do or how to make their referral. So this is one way of giving them the right language to say, I'm concerned about you, not to make maybe any assumptions about things, and ask the right questions. And ultimately, the goal of the simulation is to give faculty the tools to then recognize a concern and be proactive about it and make the referral to our area. The Red Book. This is our newest tool that we just launched a couple of weeks ago. It was sent out to the entire campus community. That's the link. This is a screenshot of the homepage. And what we wanted to do was put together one comprehensive online resource of every particular issue a faculty member or a staff member may see related to a student concern. So the first one you'll see here is an active shooter situation. This is the full list of all the areas that we cover in the Red Book. So active shooter, alcohol and other drugs, discrimination, disruptive behaviors, emotional distress, food and housing insecurity, a medical emergency, missing student, sexual violence, student death, or suicide crisis. So all obviously very serious matters. Fortunately, we hope that many of them are rare, but we just want to make sure our faculty and staff have the tools in order to make the referral. So what the Red Book does is it gives the situation, how you can identify any points of concern, what to do about it, and then how to make the referral. So very simple steps to move forward on any of these particular cases. We also have enhanced what we call our CARE team, which stands for Consult, Assess, Respond, and Educate. This team, and I'm incredibly grateful for the work they do, it includes representatives from our police department, from academics, from student affairs. They meet on a weekly basis, and they review the most serious cases related to student behavior concerns, and how do we intervene and support the student and ensure that the campus remains safe. And so we currently have a CARE website that we have created, an email address and a phone number, and that's how information often comes through to us, and then we reach out to the students on that. We're also going to be launching a portal shortly, and that will be an electronic forum in which any community member can share information about a student that then we can respond to.
And if I could just jump in here for a sec, Rick, I mean, I've occasionally sat with this team. They meet weekly during term. We used to call it the Behavioral Assessment Committee. Some institutions call it the Behavioral Intervention Committee. I like the fact that we've sort of rebranded it in this context as a supportive and consultative team. I mean, you have no idea the volume that these colleagues are working with, and across the entire organization, undergraduates, graduate students, professional students. We face rising challenges with global students who often are coming from, contexts and from cultures where there's been no tradition of, mental health assessment or access to mental health resources. So it's a remarkable team. They work really hard.
Agreed. And then the newest thing we've rebranded is our student support team. It's always fallen under the Dean of Students umbrella, our student support services, but we called it really the Dean of Students office initially. We changed it to student support in part because we also serve our graduate and undergraduate students, and often as graduate students don't see a connection to the word Dean of Students or maybe think it's more disciplinary focused. So we think the student support team really tells by the name now what it is that we do. So we have a website now we've created. And again, these are some examples of why a student would be referred to student support. We actually doubled the size of the team. We have 4 staff members now who manage these situations. And so we get referrals throughout the day from faculty. Students come in themselves. And so it might be a case, for example, if a student was hospitalized, there's a medical emergency, and they're out of class for an extended period of time. We need to be the intervener to connect them with faculty, for example. If there's a chronic condition, a death of a loved one, the food or housing insecurity example that we've this past year we've had 3 students come forward who indicate they're homeless. We found them housing on campus and worked out an arrangement with that. If there's food insecurity, we also have the ability to give meal vouchers to students. So we really have made important attempts to address any concern that comes in and make sure students, again, get back on track. So looking ahead to 2020, part of our plan is to visit each academic and student service area. While we're happy with the web communications we've created and the whole cadre of services, we know that the one-on-one communication with faculty is really important, and so we are going to be going out to every single academic department, actually on an annual basis, to share what our services are and make sure that they're aware of how to refer a student. The reporting tool I mentioned, we'll have that launched to report student concerns. I also think too that I mentioned before with the union opening, I think it's going to be incredible in that it gives an opportunity to create more community spaces on this campus. How do we engage students in community? And so that is an opportunity. Some places that will move out of the SAC into the union will allow us, again, reinvigorate those spaces to be more community focused. We're creating a master campus calendar of events and programs. We want to make sure if there are any gaps in weekends that everything's filled so that there's always something to do on the campus for students. As I said, we're going to move and expand the food pantry services. And the last thing we're really excited about is we have launched and we'll be fundraising for a student emergency support fund. So when students come to the student support team, right now our funds are incredibly limited if we need to help a student. And we know there are cases, like a good example is a student, for example, their car breaks down. They need $300 for a repair. If they don't have the money, that could mean the reason they leave school. And so the part of it is really a retention tool for the university as well to make sure if there are issues that we could address and help with a small amount of money, that's the intention with the fund that we'll create.
Well,
thank you. Any questions?
Good stuff. Yeah, Rick, I have one. I think we've all followed some of the recent issues that went on at Syracuse University. Yeah, how did we deal with a situation like that where I know we had a presentation a year or two ago on First Amendment rights, but how do we prevent an issue that Syracuse has been dealing with now in terms of the manifesto that got air bombed or airdropped? I don't even understand how to do that to the whole community and scared a lot of the students.
Sure. Well, we've had a lot of discussion as a leadership team about those issues, and I've done a lot of research on everything Syracuse has done from the beginning to now. I think we're a different campus. I think we have engaged students and staff in very different ways, I think, than other universities have in terms of our diversity plan, of everything that we've done as a campus. And these are all, I think all the examples that we share here are intended to make sure that we're providing every opportunity for every student possible. And so I don't think we're blinded to think that something couldn't happen in any campus, but I think in terms of our infrastructure, we look at the partnerships between the president's office, our police, our student affairs staff. We do a weekly climate call. There are so many things that we know what's going on in our campus. We partner with USG and GSO to make sure we're getting the pulse check of the students. So again, I'm not on Syracuse's ground to know exactly, but I think my sense is some of that has been an undercurrent for some time, and I just think our campus is much more proactive in the way we've addressed any kinds of concerns. But I'd love to hear, I don't know if there are others.
I'd love to hear that. Yeah.
So, I think that we really take this extremely systemic approach to all of this. And so all of the work that Rick's team is doing with students really being close and on the ground, what speakers are coming in, who might not like that speaker, what are the issues that are happening. We have, we have a weekly climate call that I run. It's all parts of the campus. It's UPD, it's the provost office, it's student affairs, it's comms, and we talk about what are the issues, what's happening, what's possibly happening, what's brewing, is there a rally this week, what do we need to do? And we also have significant conversation with students and other groups before things happen. So our UPD will work out if there's going to be protest, for example. Protest is going to be over here. You're going to let people go forward to their event. And if you don't, that's when we'll have a problem. But our protest is over here. Our sign rules are these. We do all that in advance. And so when the thing is happening, there are ground rules. And we really devote a significant amount of time to that. And it's really sort of everybody in this room and their staff who are working that. And so, does that mean we're not going to, as we always say to students, you're sometimes going to see or hear things you don't like. We can't stop that, but we will make sure you get to your event. We will make sure that there's never final, all those things. You might hear things that you don't like. You might see a sign you don't like.
Got it. Shihiro, still any comments?
I don't think it can be emphasized enough, Kevin, something that Judy just said about the ability of the student affairs team and other units like UPD and so forth to be interacting with student leadership as well as faculty and staff leadership regularly, independent of when there's a crisis. If the only time you're interacting is when there's a crisis, it's too late.
Right. Exactly.
So the building of those, of that kind of solidarity and the regular exchange of information is something I think the Division of Student Affairs and the campus climate team that Judy stewards everywhere, I think they're very good at doing. And UPD has been terrific in this, in establishing connections with students and student leadership, independent of critical moments. So when the critical moments come, then there can be really fruitful conversation.
No, it's actually really neat to hear all the programs because, every week you hear something on the news involving a student, or whether it's a suicide, or whether it's a hazing incident, or some other terrible story. And it's great to see that there are so many different programs that we have here to help address those situations.
It's all about being proactive rather than reactive, and you can't be proactive in every way, but all of these examples I think are ways that we're trying to always stay ahead of the curve and think about how do we make sure that in terms of what goes to the care team, for example, if we could have intervened earlier because of a referral, that's what we're asking people to do, because then it will prevent the more serious situations from escalating if we can address them sooner.
A little over a week ago, there was a SUNY campus president's meeting. Thanks to the storm, we did it by phone rather than all of us heading to Albany. A lot of conversation about incidents there was the Syracuse incident you've mentioned, Kevin, but incidents at Binghamton and at Buffalo recently. There's a lot of conversation about that, and I was struck, several of the campuses do not have the mechanisms and the programs that Rick and Judy have described. We're very fortunate. And I came away from that conversation. We always have to be vigilant. Right. We always have to make sure we're doing everything we can. But I think we've got a great team looking at these issues here.
Any other council members have any questions or comments? Rick, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Any council members have any new business to raise? Hearing none, as I mentioned earlier.
I have a question.
Sure.
Not new business, old business. The football with the alcohol, and how's that going?
That season has ended. The program, which was a pilot program, I think went well. We're reviewing the data now, both on the sales, the impact on the fan experience. There were no incidents.
Excellent.
But we are getting a group back together again to reassess that, and we are continuing with alcohol sales in the basketball season.
But so far, so good.
So far, so good.
Awesome.
It's
Thanks.
Continuing with the basketball season?
Yes.
And again, that's still considered a pilot?
Absolutely, it is a pilot program.
Any other comments or questions? So as I mentioned, diary February 10th. I think Washington, the President's Day is the 17th, so why don't you diary the 10th and the 24th? And we'll know probably by, before the end of January, if those dates are gonna hold. In the beginning, when I introduced the folks from Isaacson Miller, we laid out the schedule for the search, and we always have a February meeting anyway. And I'm trying to avoid having to have 2 meetings, and so if we're ready with recommendations for the council to consider, those are the dates we're going to hold: Monday the 10th and Monday the 24th. Good.
Great.
There we no other business. We will, Chris just made a motion to adjourn, seconded by Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a Happy Holiday Season, and we'll see you soon.
In an hour.
All right.